The Syrian Observatory for Human Rights has confirmed that regime and Russian airstrikes have stopped in Aleppo. The Russian defense minister announced they had stopped the bombings earlier on Tuesday. He said the decision will allow for the creation of 6 humanitarian corridors that civilians and rebel fighters can use to leave the city. Well, Shamim Chowdhury has more from Gaziantep.
The announcement by Moscow that it's halted airstrikes on Tuesday on eastern Aleppo has come as something of a surprise. Moscow hasn't said how long it'll go on for. What it is saying that the idea is to pave the way, set up an environment for an 8-hour pause in fighting on Thursday. Now, during this time, Moscow is saying that civilians and rebels will be allowed to move away from eastern Aleppo and into the nearby province of Idlib, where the sick and the elderly and the wounded will be able to receive medical treatment, and others will be able to receive food and medicine and water that they haven't had for such a long time. Now, this is very far from ideal as far as the international community is concerned. America is saying that this has come too little, too late, and what the UN and the EU and other countries want is a complete ceasefire. Now, Russia is saying that that is not going to happen, and the reason it's giving is that it says that if there is a ceasefire, it'll allow rebels in eastern Aleppo to regroup and come back stronger than ever. Now, in the meantime, more than 250,000 people have been trapped inside eastern Aleppo for a very long time. They have been subject to Russian and Syrian air bombardments, and many hospitals and civilian infrastructures have been destroyed. Now, this 8-hour pause is not ideal. It's not what the international community wants, but many view it as a tiny step, perhaps, in the right direction.
Well, for the latest, let's speak to Julia Lyubova, who's joining us now from Moscow. Julia, good to speak to you. So, what are the Russians saying about the halting of these airstrikes?
Well, that's right. According to Russia's defense ministry, at around 7 GMT this morning, Russian and Syrian air forces have stopped their airstrikes on Aleppo. This comes just 2 days before a planned stop in bombing that Moscow announced on Monday. Russian military officials say that this halt will help to guarantee the safety of 6 civilian corridors for civilian evacuation. So it looks like all of today's halt comes in preparation for Thursday's planned humanitarian pause. And that pause comes after Moscow came under heavy criticism from several Western leaders who have accused Moscow of war crimes.
And how long do you think this is going to last? It has been welcomed by the UN, of course, but the UN say it's not enough.
Well, that's right. Moscow says it plans to hold its operations in Aleppo for 8 hours on Thursday. In that time, it says that should allow civilians to leave via 6 humanitarian corridors, and also should allow militants to leave via 2 separate corridors. Moscow says that Syrian troops will be pulled back to allow militants to do that. However, UN agencies are saying that at least 12 hours are needed to do that, so we'll have to see if that's enough time. Moscow says it hopes that the separation of moderate opposition from terrorists can begin in Aleppo after that, and also Moscow says it hopes for assistance from other nations for this withdrawal.
Okay, Julia, for now, from Moscow, we thank you.